Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this webinar, True or Not? Your Food Questions, Expert Answers. I'm Donna Menning with the Center for Food Integrity. We have muted all lines for quality purposes. The webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our host for the webinar, Carolyn O'Neil, author, journalist, and registered dietitian. Good evening, Carolyn, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Donna, and welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us this evening for your food questions, expert answers. I am Carolyn O'Neil, a registered dietitian with a master's degree in nutrition and a specialization in nutrition communication. I reported on food, nutrition, and cuisine as a correspondent for CNN for nearly 20 years, and throughout that time I covered a wide range of food stories from pate to pesticides, and I truly do believe as a dietitian and a health communicator that the more you know, the more you can eat. And I'll add to that, the better you can eat. I've just authored a new cookbook. It's called Slim Down South, and it's Southern Living's first ever, wait for it, healthy Southern cookbook. Tonight it's my pleasure to be working with the Center for Food Integrity as the host for this webinar addressing contemporary food questions and expert answers. First off, who is the Center for Food Integrity? Well, the Center for Food Integrity, or CFI, was established in 2007 to build consumer trust and confidence in today's food system. CFI is a not-for-profit organization whose members represent each segment of the food chain, including farmers and ranchers, universities, food processors, restaurants, retailers, and food companies. Their mission is to build consumer trust and confidence in today's food system by sharing accurate, balanced information, correcting misinformation, highlighting best practices that build trust, and engaging stakeholders to address issues that are important to consumers. The Center's vision is to lead the public discussion and facilitate dialogues like this one with the food system to create better alignment with consumer expectations. As a dietitian, it's my pleasure to advise the Center on food and nutrition matters and provide one of those voices in the discussion. On this slide, you'll see the guiding principles of the Center for Food Integrity. Consumers have a right to expect food to be grown and delivered safely and responsibly, and deserve accountability if it is not. Consumer choice should be celebrated and protected. At the same time, the food system must be allowed to responsibly use technology and innovation to produce more food using fewer resources. The Center believes food system practices must be ethically grounded, scientifically verified, and economically viable. Without a balance of these three elements, systems cannot truly be sustainable. It's important to note that CFI does not lobby or advocate for specific brands or companies, but rather helps facilitate public conversations about food, which brings us to the focus of our webinar tonight. Through our website, Best Food Facts, we have been engaged with consumers addressing questions about food, and to date, we have over 150 university-based food experts on the site providing answers to many challenging issues as well as common misconceptions about food. It's a vibrant site with a blog, questions and answers, infographics, videos, which I'm a part of, and even consumer polls. We also invite you to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at #BestFoodFacts. That's Twitter, #BestFoodFacts. Speaking of polls, throughout this webinar, we're going to do a few that we'd like you to watch for, and they'll appear on the right-hand side of your screen. Okay, first question. What is your favorite afternoon pick-me-up? Is it tea? Is it chocolate? Maybe it's a quick stroll around the office. Let us know. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to review the most common food questions brought to our experts and share what our experts had to say. These are based on consumer inquiries to the Best Food Facts website and really represent emerging food trends. Now, we're only going to highlight responses, so please look for more details on the website, bestfoodfacts.org. Okay, we've got 10 topics, so let's get going. Number 1. Are fresh fruits and vegetables better than canned and frozen produce? Now, this is a good question. Well, certainly the produce we buy at roadside stands and farmers markets and grown maybe in your own back garden are delicious. But are they better nutritionally than canned or frozen? By the way, have you noticed the uptick in the home canning trend nationwide? That's happening too. All right, let's get back to the question. We asked our expert, Brenda Roche-Walford, and she says, fruits and vegetables that are canned have relatively the same amount of nutrients as fresh foods. Canned foods are also a way for people to have access to fruits and vegetables year-round, and they're generally more affordable, even out of season. A registered dietitian, Brenda Roche-Walford, says, there's not a single best choice when it comes to choosing fruits and vegetables. I think you need to consider all options to have a healthy diet year-round. Now, in order to avoid excess salt in canned produce, choose sodium-reduced canned foods or rinse the canned food in water to remove excess sodium. Studies have shown that rinsing canned beans, for instance, can lower sodium content by up to 40%. To avoid extra sugar in canned fruit, you can rinse canned fruit or buy fruit packed in water or in its own juice. Number 2. Are fruits and vegetables sprayed with pesticides less safe than organic produce? Now, we've just heard expert confirmation about nutrition. In all forms, fruits and vegetables are inherently nutritious, whether they're eaten fresh, canned, or frozen. But in recent years, organic foods have been marketed to be safer, based on the assumption they are grown using fewer pesticides. Well, let's see what an expert has to say. Ruth McDonald, chair and professor of the Department of Food Science and Human Nutrition at Iowa State, says, there's a widely held thought that conventionally grown fruits and vegetables are loaded with pesticide and herbicide chemical residue. Dr. Ruth McDonald says the FDA and the USDA routinely monitor the food supply for chemical residues and post results on their websites. She adds, what may be surprising is that organic foods also contain organic approved chemicals used in their production or those accumulated from the environment, same as conventional foods. She says, when studies are published, often people conclude that the chemicals are dangerous because they're present in the food, but they're not paying attention to the amount of exposure that's normal and acceptable to consume. Scientists who study this always say it's not the presence or absence of a chemical, it's the amount or dose present. So let's learn a little bit about dose. Toxicologist Dr. Carl Winters researched the pesticides and the fruits and vegetables that the Environmental Working Group called the Dirty Dozen. What he found was that even for the most contaminated produce on that list, the level of pesticide exposure is incredibly low. He adds, we have a saying in toxicology, it's the dose that makes the poison. In the case of pesticide residues on food, we can detect them, but generally at very tiny levels. The levels at which we detect these pesticides are so low, consumers have nothing to worry about. And you can see in the slide, he says these foods are generally 1,000,000 times lower than doses that haven't even caused effect in animals. So again, tiny levels. As a registered dietitian, I like to reassure shoppers that with produce, the benefits outweigh the risks. And just as we encourage a variety of fruits and vegetables to get a variety of nutrients, eating a variety of fruits and vegetables spreads out any potential risk. The important thing consumers should recognize is that they need to eat a diet with a variety of fruits and vegetables, whether they're organic or conventional. That's really the best thing they can do for their health. Okay, question number 3. Is real cane sugar healthier than other sugars? Okay, let's go to the expert. Registered dietitian Connie Dickman says added sugars have about the same number of calories with little or no nutritional value, so should not be viewed as one is better than the other. They all need to be limited in our diets. Also, she says there's little difference between high fructose corn sugar and any other caloric sweetener. It adds calories and is metabolized in the body in the same way that sugar, honey, fruit juice concentrate, or agave nectar do. Added sugars all yield 4 calories per gram. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans advises us all that we should be consuming smaller amounts and less often. As a dietitian and cookbook author, with that new cookbook coming out, Slim Down South, I know how important the taste of something sweet can be. The trick is to indulge a little and enjoy indulgent desserts or sugar-sweetened drinks in moderation. And there are some pretty exciting ways to add a pinch or less of sugar to beverages and recipes and get a whole lot of satisfaction. Okay, it's time for another poll. When it comes to your questions about the foods you eat, who do you trust the most? You can enter your reply in the chat function to the right of your screen. Okay, question number 4. Can most people benefit from a gluten-free diet? All right, now number 4 on the list is certainly growing interest in the gluten-free diet. A book in 2012 called Wheat Belly claimed that wheat is a primary driver of America's recent rise in obesity. Gluten, found in wheat, barley, and rye, and in oats processed in the same mills as those grains, cannot be digested by those with celiac disease and can affect the health of those who are gluten intolerant. These are the food facts. In the U.S., less than 1% of the population has celiac disease, and up to 10% are thought of gluten sensitivity. These individuals do need to consume a gluten-free diet. The good news is that there are more better tasting gluten-free foods and ingredients available today. There's even gluten-free beer. And more restaurants are getting serious about offering truly gluten-free menu options. More good news, the FDA recently defined the term gluten-free for food manufacturers. Gluten-free means the products must contain less than 20 parts per million per serving. So what do our experts say about the claim that modern wheat varieties are causing obesity and this increasing gluten sensitivity? Dr. P. Stephen Benzinger, a wheat breeder and a geneticist with the Department of Agronomy and Horticulture at the University of Nebraska, says, among the major cereal grains, wheat actually is relatively higher in protein, therefore lower in carbohydrate than many other cereals and pasta, also rice and corn. The higher protein content in wheat is needed to make bread, same with the higher protein pastas. In addition, Dr. Benzinger says that wheat from 100 years ago exhibited the same qualities as modern wheat. So the assumption that today's wheat varieties create gluten sensitivity, so the assumption that today's wheat varieties create gluten insensitivity is unfounded. You know, as a dietitian, I want to add that some folks who are getting on the gluten-free bandwagon to lose weight, let's say, will be disappointed to know that you can eat just as many or even more calories when choosing gluten-free foods. After all, gluten-free chocolate chip cookies are still chocolate chip cookies. You can read more about this subject, including insight from other experts on our website, bestfoodfacts.org. Now, question number 5. Here's a topic that's getting a significant amount of attention, processed foods. By the way, if you eat bread, cheese, pickles, or drink wine, guess what? Your diet contains processed foods. Andrea Giancoli, who is a dietitian and a spokesperson for the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, is our expert here. And she says, we have to determine what processed really means when we're talking about processed food. Processed food falls into a spectrum from minimally to heavily processed. For instance, minimally processed foods like bagged spinach, cut vegetables, roasted nuts are often simple, pre-prep for convenience. Ready-to-eat foods like crackers, granola, and deli meat are more heavily processed, and other processed foods are often pre-made meals like frozen pizzas and microwavable dinners. Processed food can actually be beneficial to your diet, and Andrea explains. For instance, milk and juices are sometimes fortified with calcium and vitamin D, and breakfast cereal may have added fiber. Canned fruit, packed in water or its own juice, is a good option when fresh fruit is just not available. Some minimally processed foods, like pre-cut vegetables, are a great convenience for busy people. She says bagged vegetables and salads are helping people eat more vegetables. You have to look at the big picture, she says. Be a detective. Read the ingredients list and review the nutrition facts panel. Food is complex, and we need to get to know more about it. Okay, moving on to number 6. And by the way, again, there's so much more information on bestfoodfacts.org. So as we go through these top questions, know that there's much, much more to share. Okay, number 6. Do hormones in milk, meat, and eggs cause early puberty? The topic of hormones causing early puberty is our number 6 question. And it's a topic of concern because, of course, we're all interested in the food supply and its effect on the health of our kids and what we feed them. So let's go to the expert. Terry Etherton, a distinguished professor of animal nutrition and the head of the Department of Dairy and Animal Science at Penn State. Here's some background. Hormones used with food-producing animals to enhance feed efficiency, lean muscle development, and milk production are species-specific, meaning that they are biologically inactive in humans. The FDA maintains that studies show that treating food-producing animals with growth hormones poses no danger to humans. Furthermore, Dr. Etherton says, toxicology tests have established levels at which hormone residues in meat are considered safe, and regulations require the amounts in food to be lower than that safety mark. Residues in meat are really, really small, he says, at the picogram level. That's a trillionth of a gram, and if you imagine a football field or a stadium filled with white ping pong balls, a picogram would be represented by 20 or so orange balls in the mix. He says there's no evidence of increased risk to the consumer or any human health effects at those levels. Let's go to another expert. Ann Macrina is a senior instructor and research associate at the Department of Dairy and Animal Science at Penn State. She addresses this question. So what is causing early puberty in young girls? Because research does indicate that puberty is developing at a young rate, according to a 2010 study published in the Journal of Pediatrics, about 15% of 7-year-old girls show the beginning of breast development. In African American girls, the rate is nearly 1 in 4. Dr. Macrina at Penn State University shares a couple of key reasons observed by scientists. First, girls are maturing more quickly because of better nutrition overall. Keep in mind, girls must achieve a certain body mass for the onset of puberty to occur. Because the obesity rate is increasing at such a rapid rate, girls are reaching this point much sooner. Researchers say the picture is more complicated than a single cause or a single effect. Again, here's another question we would like to hear from you for our poll. Where does most of the protein you consume come from? Again, refer to the chat box on your screen. Number 7, are genetically modified foods unhealthy? GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, may be one of the most polarizing topics in the food industry today. A GMO is defined as a plant or animal altered using modern techniques of genetic modification. Genetically modified plants have 1 or 2 extra genes that have been added to their genome, their DNA. It's all about making crops more functional and better to withstand environmental stress in an effort to be a stronger plant. Now, biotechnology. Any discussion of GMOs must begin with a review of the roots of biotechnology, which literally means the use of a living organism to perform a task or a function. One expert that we interviewed, Dr. Daniil Jemison-McClung from the University of California, Davis, said you can think of a GM plant as an iPhone, and the gene that is inserted as an app for that. There's nothing fundamentally changing about the plant, but it does allow the plant to do something it couldn't do before on its own. For instance, resisting drought, resisting pests, and even tolerating climate change. Here's some more information on GMOs. In the U.S., GMOs are more highly regulated than any other methods to introduce traits into crops today, and by 3 different agencies: the Food and Drug Administration, the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, and the Environmental Protection Agency. The primary body that regulates the commercialization of GMOs is the USDA. This is a lengthy process that for most products takes years to determine whether approval will even be granted. No other product or system that is used to introduce desired traits undergoes this same level of scrutiny as do the products of modern biotechnology. In effect, GMO foods and crops are being regulated as strictly as medical drugs, even though there's no evidence that they carry more risks than conventional foods and crops. U.S. commercially grown, genetically modified crops you may be interested to note include corn, soybean, cotton, canola, sugar beets, papaya, squash, sweet corn, and alfalfa. Let's turn to an expert. Dr. Wayne Parrott, professor and researcher at the University of Georgia in my home state, I'm in Atlanta right now, reminds us before any GMO can come to market, it must undergo extensive testing to ensure that the content of vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients is not inadvertently altered during the final process. For every study that finds nutritional superiority in organic produce, another finds nutritional superiority in GMO produce. The bottom line is to make sure you eat as many fresh fruits and vegetables as you can, regardless of whether they are grown conventionally, organically, or with improvements made through genetic modification. We have many, many questions on the bestfoodfacts.org from people about GMO, and here are a few more. Best Food Facts has these questions and more addressed on the website by numerous experts. We invite you to visit the site and learn more. We could even do an entire webinar on this. Let's move on to number 8. Are those who follow a plant-based diet, vegetarians and vegans, healthier than people who eat meat, dairy, or eggs? Well, the choice of what to put on one's plate or in one's body is a highly personal choice. Over the last decade or two, plant-based diets have grown in prevalence and in popularity. That's a good thing, more vegetables on the menu. But would choosing a diet of vegetables instead of meat make for a longer and healthier life? An ongoing Loma Linda University research effort studying 96,000 Seventh-day Adventists who are vegetarians seems to suggest just that. Best Food Facts asked Dr. Wendy Dahl, a registered dietitian who teaches in the Food Science and Human Nutrition Department at the University of Florida, about the research. Dahl provided this perspective. She says people who choose a vegetarian lifestyle are obviously conscious of their eating habits and are trying to make healthy choices. However, they also make other healthy choices such as not smoking, exercising more, and that could help contribute to their lower risk of disease. These healthy lifestyle decisions may help them live longer, not just what they're eating. A plant-based vegetarian diet that contains lots of fiber may contribute to vegetarians living longer and provide numerous health-promoting phytochemicals found in plant foods. This is because fiber is known for its beneficial health effects such as lowering cholesterol, reducing heart disease risk, regulating blood sugar, and possibly reducing colorectal cancer risk. And while just 5% of U.S. residents polled consider themselves vegetarians, most of us choose to eat meat either regularly or occasionally. The USDA recommends a diet high in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein, including lean cuts of meat, fish, and lean low-fat dairy and non-fat dairy. Okay, number 9. Has antibiotic use in cattle, pigs, and poultry led to increased antibiotic resistance in humans eating these meats? Let's move on to number 9, and the growing interest and concern in the use of antibiotics in food animals and the implication that it's causing antibiotic resistance in humans eating meat. Dr. Scott Hurd is a veterinarian and a professor at Iowa State University, where he is a director of the World Health Organization Collaborating Center for Risk Assessment and Hazard Identification in Foods of Animal Origin. He says the risk assessments that have been published in peer-reviewed scientific journals show that the chance of danger is extremely low. The companies that make antibiotics have been working with FDA to cut back on the use of antibiotics that are important in human medicine and extend veterinary oversight. According to the American Veterinary Medical Association, though, there is little or no evidence that restricting or eliminating the use of antibiotics in food-producing animals would improve human health or reduce the risk of antibiotic resistance in humans. Furthermore, antimicrobial antibiotic resistance is only a threat to public health when humans are infected with a resistant organism that is difficult or impossible to treat. This is an issue seen more frequently with human pathogens transmitted between humans. You can read a lot more about this very important topic and hear from other experts on the website bestfoodfacts.org. Wow, I can't believe we're up to number 10, and this is a very important question from many consumers today. Are organic foods healthier? Well, before we get to our final topic here, let's have another fun question, and join us in our chat on the right side of the screen and tell us your favorite topping for ice cream or maybe a sorbet or frozen yogurt. You can type your response in the chat box. Okay, number 10. Are organic foods healthier? Well, sales are certainly healthy. The demand for organic foods has grown very rapidly in the last 10 to 15 years. Organic food sales in the U.S. have increased from approximately 11 billion, that's billion as in basil, in 2004 to an estimated 27 billion in 2012. And that's according to the Nutrition Business Journal. Okay, let's go to the experts. Again, Ruth McDonald at Iowa State. While consumers desire to eat healthier and safer foods, research says there's little difference between organic and conventionally raised foods. And Dr. McDonald emphasizes that they're both excellent sources of nutrients. In fact, a study by Stanford University researchers published in the Annals of Internal Medicine found that fruits and vegetables labeled organic were on average no more nutritious than conventional fruits and vegetables. Organic fruits and vegetables were not any less likely to be contaminated by dangerous bacteria like E. coli either, and there was no obvious health benefits or advantages to consuming organic meats. Toxicologist Dr. Carl Winter, who we met a few moments ago, says that when comparing the end products from organic production and conventional farming, it's premature to conclude that either system is superior to the others in terms of healthiness. Now, as a dietitian, I like to point out that the varieties of fruits and vegetables planted by organic farmers are often chosen for their flavor, maybe not how perfect they are in terms of the way they look, and are sold pretty close to where they're grown. So they often do taste better, and that means folks will eat and enjoy more, and that's a great thing. But of course, there are plenty of great tasting products that are grown conventionally as well, and what's so important is eating plenty of fruits and vegetables for good health. Well, that concludes our list of the top 10 food issues, and we'll visit the polls. You'll see the results right here on bestfoodfacts.org, and we welcome your questions at any time, and we will find the answer for your very tough question to consistently answer true or not. You can visit Best Food Facts website to submit those questions and what topics you'd like to see addressed and what experts you'd like us to include. We invite you to use the information from the site with your audience as you address important food issues. Also on the website, sign up for our e-newsletter and receive timely information from the experts on food topics. This webinar was recorded, and we will share an audio link with you when it's on our website, bestfoodfacts.org.